Stop everything and listen to this. Because what you're about to hear, it's not theory, it's not ritual, it's not religion. It's a sound. But not just any sound. It's the forbidden sound that Thoth used to raise the body's frequency instantly. Just one chant. And the energy field would shift in that very moment. The air felt different. The mind went quiet. The body vibrated on another level. And it's not just me saying this. This was recorded in the hidden temples of Egypt, where only those who had awakened their inner vision could enter. But here's the most incredible part. This sound doesn't need an instrument or a master or a temple. It's already inside you. Today, for the first time, I'm going to show you how to really activate it. And it's not about repeating a mantra just with your mouth. It's about feeling your whole field vibrate like never before. But pay attention, because those who hear this sound without being ready sometimes awaken forces they don't know how to control. So stay with me until the end, because I'm going to guide you step by step to do this the right way, and see with your own eyes what happens to your vibration. Now answer me in the comments. Do you feel ready to discover who you really are? Write this: I'm ready to vibrate in my true sound. Now imagine for a moment that there's something in the universe that doesn't need your permission to work. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It doesn't matter if you accept it or reject it. It simply acts. Invisible but real, silent but relentless. A vibration that goes beyond what you think, what you feel, and even what you deny. Now stop and think. How many things in your life have you avoided doing because you thought you had to believe first? How many teachings have you heard and tossed aside just because they sounded too mystical for your rational mind? But what if I told you that vibration doesn't care about your opinion? It simply happens. It doesn't depend on your belief to exist. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't wait for your validation. It doesn't work like religions that say, if you believe, it will happen. Because at this level, belief is irrelevant. The vibrational field acts directly on your being, on your body, on your energy, whether you notice it or not. And this isn't just spiritual theory. Throughout history, there have been records of ordinary people with no mystical preparation being touched by frequencies that completely changed how they think, act, and live. People who were in the middle of chaos and suddenly felt such deep peace that everything shifted. People who, without knowing why, began to see life with new eyes, hear silence with a different heart, feel their own presence vibrating beyond the mind. Of course, not everyone described it the same way. Some said it was a divine calling. Others said it was a nervous breakdown. Others even thought they had gone crazy. But the truth was there for those who had the courage to see. They had been touched by a frequency that reorganized everything inside. And here's the most curious part. It didn't happen because they had been meditating for years, or because they were saints, or because they were seeking enlightenment. In many cases, it happened in the middle of pain, in the middle of loss, in the middle of emptiness. Because true vibration doesn't choose the beautiful moments in your life. It chooses the right moment of your soul. But now comes the part few understand. This frequency, when it comes into contact with your energy field, doesn't ask you to believe in it. It just touches. And when it touches, it reorganizes. Not because it imposes something new, but because it dissolves what was misaligned. Like a wind sweeping away dust. Like a wave silencing the noise, like a light erasing darkness without effort. You could be in the middle of the loudest city in the world, distracted by 1,000 thoughts. Even so, if this vibration crosses your field, you'll feel it. There's no way to avoid it. The heart slows down, the air feels lighter, the mind quiets, even if just for a few seconds. It's like another reality brushing against your skin for a brief instant, And in that instant, nothing else matters. Not your fears, not your desires, not your problems. Just the pure vibration acting on your being. And here's the part no one tells you. You don't need to have faith for this to happen. You don't need to study spirituality or read sacred books, because the vibration acts on the essence, not the intellect. It touches the part of you that existed long before your beliefs, long before your personal story, long before any identity you created to survive in the world. There are reports of people who, after hearing certain ancestral sounds or vibrational mantras, had such deep insights that they changed their lives forever. Some said they accessed memories they didn't even know they had. Others said they suddenly understood the meaning of life without anyone explaining a thing. And others simply cried in silence, not knowing why they were crying, but feeling that something inside them had been healed. And the most amazing part is that, in all these stories, vibration acted before understanding. First, the frequency touched the energy field. Then, the mind tried to find explanations, but the truth had already been felt, because vibration doesn't need to convince, it just shows. Now think with me. If there are frequencies like this that act directly on your being without needing your permission, how many times have you already been touched by vibrations without even realizing it? How many times has a song, a deep silence, or even a single breath changed your inner state in a way you couldn't rationally explain? How many times has something changed without you planning that change? But now, imagine this. What if there was a specific sound, not just any vibration, not just any mantra, not just any generic frequency, a sound kept secret for millennia, a sound that, according to the ancients, could reorganize not just your energy field, but the reality around you. A sound so powerful that it couldn't be revealed to just anyone for fear it would fall into unprepared hands. Now tell me this, why was this sound hidden from humanity for so long? Who decided most people weren't ready? And most disturbing of all, who had the courage to use this sound? And what happened to them after they went through that experience? That's the question that takes us straight to the next part. And this is where the story gets even more intriguing. Because when this sound touched the hearts of the ancient initiates, something extraordinary happened. But it wasn't something visible to the naked eye, nor a spectacular miracle before crowds. It was silent, deep, transformative. And because of that, so dangerous for those who weren't ready. The fragmented records found in the ruins of Hermopolis speak of a concept that very few people in the modern world can understand. They didn't call it chakra, like in Eastern tradition, nor soul as Western religions describe. They called it the vibrational mirror, an invisible point located in the center of the chest, not the physical heart, but something they described as the portal of essence. A place where the vibration of the universe meets the vibration of the being. And you know what happened when the right sound crossed that point? The surface layers of identity began to dissolve. Masks fell off. Limiting beliefs shattered. And there, in the deepest silence, emerged memories that didn't come from childhood or youth or any experience from this life. They were memories that seemed to come from long before, from places and times that logic can't explain. People reported visions of temples they had never visited, stars they had never studied, civilizations that official history never acknowledged. They felt as if they had walked through worlds invisible to the human eye, as if a part of them had been asleep for millennia, and that sound had been the key that unlocked the door to that forgetting. Imagine feeling that, not as imagination, not as fantasy, but as a truth pulsing in every cell of your body, a silent memory saying, you are not just who you think you are. You are not just this name, this body, this job, this life story. There is something much greater inside you, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. And the vibrational heart doesn't store these memories like a forgotten chest in some dark corner of your soul. It reflects. It mirrors. It shows you what you've forgotten to see. That's why the ancients called this process the awakening of the inner mirror, because you don't receive new information. You see what was always there, but hidden beneath the layers of your ego, your pain, and your imposed beliefs. And here is the most delicate point of this story. When this sound touched the vibrational mirror of the initiate, there was no way to hide who they truly were anymore. No way to cling to social masks or to the stories they told themselves. The sound didn't allow it. It exposed everything. It showed who was standing in front of the mirror and who had always been behind it. Some accounts say that, in that moment, many fell into silent tears, not from sadness, but from relief. Because for the first time, they felt whole. Others, however, couldn't bear the vision, couldn't handle seeing the weight they had carried for so long that, deep down, wasn't even theirs. And that's why not everyone made it through the full ritual, because this sound, as simple as it was, didn't spare anyone from the truth. Now imagine what would happen if this sound were released publicly, with no preparation, no guidance, no awareness. Imagine thousands of people hearing a sound that tears open their deepest wounds, their oldest pain, their quietest traumas, all at once. Chaos would be inevitable. And maybe that's why it was kept secret for so long. But still, this sound wasn't erased from existence. It was only reserved, saved for a specific moment, for a stage in the initiation where the heart was already strong enough to look at its own reflection without fear. Because there, and only there, the initiate was ready to cross the portal that separates the old self from the true self. But this sound was never spoken in public. It wasn't recited in plazas or written in scrolls for anyone to read. It was saved for one single moment. A moment where everything changed. And now, you're getting closer and closer to that moment. And that's exactly when everything starts to make sense. Because when the sound crosses the vibrational heart, it doesn't bring something new to you. It simply removes what was stopping you from remembering. And what's left when all the masks fall off? Your true frequency. The one that was hidden, buried under layers and layers of emotional noise, limiting beliefs, and stories you told yourself your whole life. The most fascinating thing is that each person carries a unique frequency, a vibrational signature that's not repeated in any other being in the universe. Imagine that, billions of people, and not a single one vibrates exactly like you. It's like an energetic fingerprint, a unique note in the great cosmic symphony. But over time, that note got muffled. You grew up hearing you had to be a certain way, act a different way, think like everyone else thinks, feel like everyone else feels. And without realizing it, your original frequency was silenced. And do you know how that happens? Subtly. Every time you suppressed what you felt to please someone, every time you ignored your intuition because they said it was crazy, every time you believed you weren't enough, your original frequency faded a little more. Not because it disappeared, but because it was buried under layers of fear, guilt, shame, and inherited patterns. Your true vibration remained there, intact, waiting for you to have the courage to find it again. The forbidden sound we've been talking about doesn't have the power to create something in you. And here's the key few understand. It's not going to turn you into someone else. It won't give you superpowers. It won't make you enlightened overnight. It simply reveals who you already were before all the layers, before all the stories you believed. It shows, directly and without filters, what had been asleep but never ceased to exist. It's like the sound clears a foggy mirror. It doesn't create the image. It just lets you finally see yourself. That's why, for some, The sound is freeing. For others, terrifying. Because not everyone is ready to see who they really are without the masks they've worn their entire life. And the most impressive thing is that when you vibrate your original frequency, the world responds differently. People notice, even if they don't understand. Some move away, unable to handle the truth you carry. Others draw near, sensing a familiarity beyond words. The field around you changes. Situations that once felt stuck begin to flow. Not because the world changed, but because your frequency finally became what it was always meant to be. And maybe, right now, you're asking yourself, but how do I access that frequency? How do I remove all those layers that muffle who I really am? Because it's one thing to know you have a unique vibrational signature. It's another thing entirely to actually hear that sound inside you when everything around you is screaming the opposite. And this is where the real mystery arises. Because this sound isn't hidden in a physical place, nor kept by a secret sect, nor locked away in some ancient temple. It has always been available, but very few dare to access it the right way. Not because it's hard, but because it's too simple for the mind to believe. The human mind is so used to complicating everything, to looking for complex formulas, that it doesn't realize the answer is in the simple. But the simple is scary. Because the simple requires surrender. It requires vulnerability. It requires that you stop looking outward and start listening inward. And now we arrive at the question that's been echoing since the beginning of this journey. What is the sound that can awaken this? What sound has the power to pierce through all your layers and bring out your original frequency? And even more importantly, why have so few dared to reveal it to the world, even knowing its power? That's the question that takes us even deeper into the next step of this discovery. And maybe now you're wondering, is this sound really that unreachable? Was it erased from the world, or could it be that somehow it still echoes in quiet places, hidden under different forms that no one noticed? The truth is, it never fully disappeared. It camouflaged, changed names, traditions, rituals. But for those who knew how to listen, it was always there. And that's why, in different cultures and in different times in history, you find traces of it hidden in the details that few paid attention to. In the Sufi tradition, for example, monks in the desert would chant a sound almost identical, in long sessions of silence broken by sonic vibration, where only one syllable echoed in the air, Hu. They didn't call it a mantra or a prayer. They called it the breath of being, a sound with no literal meaning, but one that, when chanted with presence, made the heart vibrate in a different state of consciousness. On the other side of the world, in some Gnostic and Hermetic schools, this same sound was described as an internal resonance. There were no fixed rules for how to pronounce it. Some said it was a calling, others said it was a return. But they all agreed on one thing. It wasn't the sound itself that mattered. It was the vibrational state it awakened in the one who spoke it. And now, for the first time, I'm going to speak this sound here. Not for you to repeat it mindlessly, but for you to recognize it. The sound is Hu, that's it. Two letters that, to the superficial mind, mean nothing, but to the vibrational field, mean everything. Hu isn't a magical name or a secret code invented by religions. It's an archetypal sound, a vibrational pattern that resonates not with words, but with essence. When you say, chew with presence, something happens that can't be explained with words. It's not the sound itself that has the power, it's what it activates inside you. HU is not a key you turn outside. It's the vibration that finds the lock within. And when that happens, the door doesn't open to somewhere else. It opens inward. It puts you in direct contact with what has always been silently vibrating deep within your being. But now comes something important. Very important. If you hear this sound and think you've understood everything, you're mistaken. Because HU isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to be lived. And most people want shortcuts. They want to repeat the sound thinking that just by doing that, they'll reach higher states. But that's not how it works, because HU doesn't respond to automatic repetition. It doesn't react to the mind's rush. It only vibrates in the heart of someone who has silenced their internal noise. That's why it was kept secret for so long. Not because they wanted to hide it, but because they knew that if used the wrong way, it could do more harm than good. And you might be thinking, if it's just a sound, why all the mystery? Why so much care? The answer is simple and deep at the same time, because a sound, when chanted with a misaligned heart, doesn't open portals of light. It amplifies what's already vibrating inside you. And if what's vibrating is fear, anger, or ego, what HU will bring to the surface isn't peace. It's all of that amplified. That's why Thoth warned his closest disciples. That's why the sound was never revealed publicly. That's why it was hidden for centuries. Because it's not just any sound. It's not a harmless tool. It's a mirror. And are you ready to face what that mirror might reflect? But if it were really that simple, all it would take is for everyone to chant "Who," and everything would be solved. Humanity would be awakened. The world would be at peace. But Thoth warned, this sound, when used unconsciously, doesn't awaken light. It can destroy, because it doesn't negotiate with your truth. It reveals it without filters. And the question that remains is, who was brave enough to use it the right way? And what happened to those people after they crossed that vibrational portal? And it's right here that the story reaches a new level. Because for centuries, everything we've talked about was kept within the spiritual world, preserved by oral traditions, protected from the eyes of modern science. But now, with advances in neuroscience and vibrational physics, the mysteries that were once called faith or superstition are beginning to be measured in the lab. Researchers began studying the effect of prolonged and resonant sounds like HU on the human body. And what they discovered is impressive. Vibrational sounds like this directly activate a structure called the vagus nerve, a massive nerve that runs through your entire body and is connected to essential functions: breathing, heart rate, digestion, and most importantly, your emotional balance. When the vagus nerve is properly stimulated, your body shifts from a stress state to a deep state of relaxation and balance. But it doesn't stop there. Studies using functional magnetic resonance imaging showed that while you emit prolonged sounds, the two hemispheres of your brain start to synchronize. And that's powerful, because normally your brain functions like two sides fighting each other: the rational side and the intuitive side, the logical side and the emotional side. But when you chant sounds like "shu" with presence, these two sides come into harmony. They start working together. And when that happens, your perception changes, mental clarity increases, the inner chaos quiets. You access a state that science calls neurological coherence. And there's more. Studies from the HeartMath Institute, a global reference in heart research, show that the electromagnetic field generated by your heart is the strongest in your body. It expands outside your body and influences people and environments around you. And when you enter emotional coherence, this field expands significantly. Now imagine a sound like HU, emitted from the center of the chest, with intention and presence, not only activates the vagus nerve and synchronizes the brain, but also expands this heart field. And you know what that creates? Personal magnetism. A presence you don't have to force. It's simply felt by people and situations around you. All of this that science is just beginning to understand now, Thoth taught thousands of years ago. But he didn't call it vagus nerve or brain coherence. He called it Sekem. Sekem was the vital energy awakening. It was the moment when a human stopped surviving and began to live aligned with their original purpose. In Thoth's language, Sekem wasn't just physiological balance, it was the activation of the energy of creation within one's own being. And here's a point that few people realize. What science can measure today is only the surface of what happens when you activate this sound in your vibrational field. Because while science observes changes in the brain, the heart, and the physical body systems, something much deeper is happening on levels that still escape measurement instruments. HU doesn't act only on the biological body. It reorganizes the invisible vibrational field that gives rise to your reality. It adjusts the frequency you're sending out to the universe. And when that frequency changes, your life experience starts changing with it. Now, it might seem like science has explained everything, but it's not quite like that. Because Thoth said something no machine can measure to this day. He said that HU not only heals the body and mind, it has the power to transform your entire reality. And it's exactly here that lies both the danger and the beauty of this sound. Because unlike what many think, HU doesn't have the power to turn someone into another person. It doesn't erase your past, doesn't remove your traumas like magic, nor does it create a perfect version of you. HU simply amplifies what's already vibrating in your field. And that's why Thoth warned so much. The sound is not an automatic cure, it's a mirror. Imagine a giant mirror placed right in front of you. It doesn't choose what to show, it just reflects. If you're in peace, it shows your peace. If you're in conflict, it throws your conflict wide open. HU does exactly that, only on a vibrational level. It resonates with what already exists inside you and amplifies it. If what exists is love, it amplifies love. But if what's vibrating in you is fear, resentment, guilt, what it amplifies are those emotions. That's why many people, when trying to access sacred sounds without emotional preparation, end up in mental and emotional breakdowns. Because instead of finding peace, they find a whirlwind of internal pain that had been asleep. HU doesn't create chaos. It simply brings to the surface what was already hidden. And this is where spiritual responsibility comes in. Because there's no point in seeking out a powerful tool like this, expecting it to fix your life on its own. There's no point in repeating the sound thinking it will erase what you don't want to feel. Because HU doesn't work like that. It doesn't work to hide. It works to reveal. It doesn't cover up your wounds. It exposes them so they can finally be healed. Many seek spiritual shortcuts because they don't want to look at their own shadows. They want to vibrate high without facing what keeps them stuck. They want peace without going through chaos. But Thoth knew there's no true peace without first facing what's misaligned within us. And that's why he said, HU isn't magic, it's a portal, and not everyone is ready to cross it. But there's something deeply freeing in all of this. Because when you understand that HU doesn't change who you are, it just amplifies. You stop looking outside and start preparing inside. You realize that the key isn't in repeating the sound, waiting for something to happen. The key is in adjusting your vibration beforehand, so when the sound echoes, it amplifies what you truly want to expand. That's why the ancient masters spent so much time in silence before chanting any sacred sound. Not because silence was mandatory, but because they knew if the mind was in conflict, the sound would amplify that conflict. If the heart was out of balance, the sound would amplify that imbalance. Only after the inner field was aligned, in a state of presence and surrender, would the HU be voiced. And then, yes, it amplified the original state of being. And what came wasn't chaos. It was deep peace. It was clarity. It was alignment. And maybe now you're thinking, so how do I prepare my field? How do I create an internal state where HU reveals my essence and not my traumas? Because no one wants to amplify their fear. Everyone wants to amplify their love, their truth, their peace. But how do you get into that state before accessing the sound? And when someone starts doing that internal prep, even without realizing it, something around them begins to shift. It's almost imperceptible at first, like the outside world is silently responding to what started vibrating on the inside. Small things that had felt stuck for years just begin to flow. People who had been distant return with a different energy. Hard conversations become lighter. Old problems that seemed unsolvable find answers where there had only been silence before. And it's not because the person forced those changes, it's because their field changed first. And when the frequency changes inside, the field around responds automatically. What was stuck begins to reorganize. It's like the silent vibration of your being starts rewriting the reality you live in. And that doesn't happen because you visualized really hard or repeated 1,000 affirmations. It happens because the right vibration doesn't need effort. It just creates coherence. And where there's coherence, there's no resistance. Some people describe it as a kind of relief they can't explain. Suddenly, they feel like they don't have to fight so hard anymore. Things start to flow more naturally. They stop chasing after everything and realize that instead, things start coming to them. It's like for the first time, the universe stops being a battlefield and becomes a field of resonance. And this impacts every area of life. In relationships, toxic people naturally drift away, not from conflict, but because the vibration is no longer a match. On the other hand, new connections arise. People who vibrate on the same frequency start to show up without you having to look for them. In work, creative and financial blocks that once seemed impossible to solve dissolve without big explanations. Stuck situations start moving, and more than that, opportunities you didn't even know existed begin to appear. That happens because the vibrational field isn't some mystical thing separate from your everyday life. It's the foundation of your reality. Your vibration determines what you notice, how you respond, and what you attract. That's why, when the field changes, life responds. It's inevitable. And maybe you're thinking, so that's it? I just adjust my internal field and everything changes? And the answer is yes and no at the same time. Because adjusting your field already makes life start to respond differently. But to fully activate HU, to unlock the full potential of that sound, there's still a secret step. A step that almost no one tells you about, because it's not in books or in modern techniques. And it's exactly that step that determines whether you'll just have some small external changes or whether you'll access the deep transformation that shifts your frequency forever. And this is exactly where almost everyone messes up, because most think it's enough to repeat HU like any other mantra and boom, transformation happens. But Thoth made it clear. Before activating the sound, you need to prepare the temple. And that temple isn't a physical place. It's your own inner field. If it's in disorder, HU does nothing but echo the chaos already inside. True preparation starts where most people don't even look, in the silence of the mind. Because as long as your thoughts are racing back and forth, your vibration won't be able to hold the HU frequency. A restless mind distorts any frequency that tries to move through it. That's why the ancients taught that before sound comes silence. Not silence in the room, but internal silence. That space where thoughts lose strength and you start to notice what exists beyond them. After mental silence comes heart alignment. And we're not talking about the physical organ, but your emotional field. Because the heart, as we've seen, is the mirror of your vibration. If it's full of resentment, anger, expectations, you will only reflect that. That's why preparation involves clearing the emotional field. That doesn't mean eliminating feelings, but learning to welcome them without identifying with them. It's when you can feel sadness without being controlled by it, or feel joy without clinging to it. It's that balance that creates the space for the sound to act with purity. And finally comes the breath. It's the bridge between body and energy. When your breathing is short, fast, and shallow, your energy is fragmented. But when you learn to breathe consciously, long and deep, your field starts to stabilize. And that balanced breath creates the perfect foundation for HU to resonate not just in your throat, but in every cell of your body. The complete preparation, taught in Hermetic circles, follows 3 simple yet deep steps. First, quiet the mind. Not to stop thinking, but to stop believing every thought. Then, open the heart. Not to force positive feelings, but to allow your natural vibration to rise without interference from fear and control. Finally, stabilize the breath. Not as a forced exercise, but as a surrender to the flow of life that is already breathing through you. Only when these 3 elements are aligned, a quiet mind, an open heart, and stable breathing, is your vibrational field ready to hold the HU without distortion. Because if you try to chant this sound without that preparation, it won't turn into pure vibration. It'll just become noise. It'll echo hollow, without power, without impact. It'll be like shouting into an empty room, hoping something will happen. But nothing happens, because the field wasn't ready. Thoth used to say the sound doesn't do the work alone. It needs fertile ground where it can expand. And that ground isn't outside, it's within. It's you. Now you're ready to hear how this sound is meant to be chanted. But be careful. It's not enough to repeat it, you have to vibrate it. Forget everything you've ever heard about complicated practices. The real ritual isn't complex. It's simple, but it demands total presence. Because any distraction, any forced effort breaks the vibration. Thoth taught that those who chase the sound in a rush find nothing, but those who surrender to silence first find everything. Start like this. Find a quiet place. It doesn't have to be a temple. It can be your room, a spot in nature, or any place where you can be fully present. Sit with your spine straight, but relaxed. Gently close your eyes. And now, just listen to the silence for a few seconds. Don't try to control anything yet. Just notice what's already vibrating inside you. Now, let's move to the breath. Inhale deeply through your nose, counting mentally to 4. As the air enters, feel it filling not just your lungs, but your entire energy field. Hold that air for 2 seconds, letting the energy settle in the center of your chest. Then, as you exhale through your mouth, release the sound. And here's the key detail. HU isn't pronounced like a word. It's released as a deep, continuous flow that vibrates in your chest, not your throat. As you exhale, let the air leave slowly, while the sound echoes like this. Hu. Feel the sound moving through your solar plexus, filling your abdomen, vibrating at the base of your spine. The tone should be low, steady, as if it comes from deep within your being and not just from your mouth. The vibration should be felt more than heard. Repeat this process for 7 minutes. Not 5, not 3. 7. Because in Hermetic traditions, the number 7 represents the complete cycle of vibrational transformation. In the first few minutes, your mind may try to distract you. It might feel repetitive, maybe even uncomfortable. But keep going. After the 3rd or 4th cycle, something starts to shift. You'll feel your field stabilizing. Your body finds its rhythm. The vibration takes over, and now comes the part almost no one tells you. The real ritual doesn't end when you stop making the sound. It continues in the silence. because it's in that silence that the field reorganizes. That's where the vibration settles in and starts acting on levels the mind can't reach. So at the end of the 7 minutes, don't get up, don't open your eyes, don't start thinking about something else. Just stay still, in total silence, for another 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes are the moment of integration. It's like the vibrational field is stitching together everything the sound opened up. During those minutes of silence, don't try to feel anything specific. Just allow. Maybe you'll feel warmth, maybe chills, maybe a quiet peace, or maybe nothing. And all of that is okay, because HU doesn't create experiences to impress you. It silently reorganizes your field. And here's the most important part. It's no use chanting the sound and then immediately going back to your busy day like nothing happened. The vibration needs space to remain, so even after the ritual is done, try to maintain a state of presence. Walk slowly, speak gently. Don't fill your field again with unnecessary noise, because the true impact of HU isn't just in the moment you chant it. It starts to show itself in what happens afterward. It's in your ongoing vibrational state that real transformation happens. But the most surprising part happens after you stop chanting, and it's exactly in the silence after the ritual that the real magic begins to unfold. Because the sound doesn't end when you stop chanting it. In fact, it's only after you go quiet that it starts to echo more deeply. First in your chest, then in your vibrational field, until the moment you realize you no longer need to chant HU out loud, because it's already vibrating on its own inside you. At first, this might seem strange. How can a sound keep vibrating even when you're not saying anything? But that's exactly what happens. HU stops being a sound and becomes a state. It's no longer on your lips, but in your energy field. It's like your natural frequency starts emitting that vibrational pattern constantly, without effort, without forced intention. Some describe it as a feeling of silent presence. Others say they feel a subtle buzzing in their chest, like a continuous echo that doesn't stop, even in the noise of the world. And the most amazing thing is that this sound doesn't interfere with your routine. It doesn't distract you, isolate you, or pull you away from practical life. On the contrary, it anchors you in the present. It keeps your vibration stable while everything around you keeps moving. And here's the real turning point. When HU becomes an internal state and not just a separate practice, your frequency stops fluctuating so much. Before, you'd feel peace during the practice, but then, when you return to daily life, the vibration would drop again. Not anymore. Now HU vibrates behind every thought, every action, every word. It holds your frequency even when you're not thinking about it. That's the moment you realize the hardest part wasn't chanting the sound. It was maintaining the field afterward. Because anyone can do a spiritual exercise for a few minutes, but keeping your vibrational field aligned all day long in the middle of challenges, pressure, and distractions, that's the real challenge. And that's why HU isn't just any mantra, it's a state of being. When that state stabilizes, something subtle but deep starts to happen. People around you feel it. Some will say you seem lighter, others will notice a different presence, even if they can't explain it. It's like your field has become clearer, more whole, more true. You don't need to convince anyone of anything anymore. Your vibration speaks for you, and from that point on, you're no longer seeking transformation. You've become the transformation. You're not asking the universe to bring peace, you're vibrating peace. You're not trying to attract harmony, you're vibrating harmony, and the universe, through resonance, begins to adjust everything around you to reflect that frequency. And it's exactly at that point that something even more amazing begins to happen. When your vibrational field reaches that silent coherence, you no longer need to search for answers with anxiety. They just show up. as if the entire universe heard your internal alignment and started responding in practical, concrete, direct ways. Situations shift without warning, but with a precision the rational mind could never plan. You realize doors that seem closed start to open without force. People you never imagined start showing up on your path, offering help, opportunities, insight. Not because you chased after them, but because your frequency was already communicating that before the encounter ever happened. Vibration precedes the event, and reality only replicates what the field already sustained in silence. In that state, everything you do no longer comes from the need to control the outside, but from the calm of someone who already trusts the invisible flow. Small gestures in your day become vibrational catalysts. A single word you say, a look, a moment of silence, all carry energy aligned with your original frequency. And that's why everything begins to have impact around you without effort. You stop living in the realm of wanting and start living in the realm of being. Because true manifestation isn't a one-time act, but a reflection of the field you continuously hold. It's like the universe stops being an external stage and becomes a natural extension of your inner vibration. And here comes the part that many don't believe until they experience it themselves. The answers start coming from unexpected places. A random conversation, a book that falls into your hands, a video that pops up at the exact right moment. None of that is coincidence. They are synchronicities that emerge when your vibration is clear enough to pick up on what's always been in the field, but you couldn't perceive it before. This is the beginning of spontaneous manifestation, not because you asked, but because you became compatible. You don't beg reality, you resonate with it. There's no more separation between desire and fulfillment. There's only frequency. And the more you hold that state, the more your external reality starts aligning with your internal vibration. It's a process where the mind stops being the engine and the vibrational field starts leading everything. That's why those who reach this level feel life shift from a battle into a dance. Effort fades and flow takes its place. But does all this happen only on a personal level? Or can this HU, this primal frequency that awakens when the field is aligned, affect something much bigger, like the whole planet? And that's exactly what ancient records began to reveal. Because this HU, which seemed like an individual phenomenon, had already been used by entire groups, and the impact was something words can barely describe. In times of crisis, when chaos threatened to swallow entire cities, Hermetic and Sufi groups would gather in secret, away from the public eye, and chant Hu in perfect synchronicity, not to put on a show, not to convince anyone, but to tune the invisible field that held the vibration of those regions. The stories say that during wars, when destruction seemed inevitable, just a few dozen people in deep alignment could shift the air. It was like an invisible wave of calm and harmony swept through the streets without anyone knowing why. Witnesses from the time reported that conflict slowed down, people acted more kindly without any clear reason, and even nature seemed to respond. The wind would change, animals would go silent, and the environment itself seemed to breathe in peace. These groups didn't use weapons or fiery speeches. They knew that real transformation doesn't come from external clashes, but from collective vibrational coherence. Because when multiple human fields vibrate in unison, a larger field is created, one far more powerful than any isolated energy could reach. It's the principle of resonance. When several frequencies align, they amplify each other, and HU, when chanted in a group, became a catalyst for that resonance. Each person present would align their vibration with the primordial sound, and together, they would create a frequency so pure that it could pass through walls, borders, and hearts. It was no longer just an individual spiritual practice. It was vibrational technology applied to the collective, a true unified field. These records are not vague myths. Many of them appear in Sufi accounts from the Middle East, where entire cities witness spontaneous truces during intense conflicts. Similarly, Hermetic schools in medieval Europe used HU during periods of religious persecution to create bubbles of peace where their teachings could survive safely. And the most fascinating part is that all this happened without most of the population even knowing where that sudden calm came from. What those groups knew was simple yet profound. When the collective vibrational field is aligned with the primordial frequency, reality around it begins to reorganize by resonance. No need to convince anyone. The field does it naturally. It's like reality is a detuned instrument, and HU, in unison, is the note that brings harmony back. But there was a reason those groups kept it a secret, and maybe you felt it without even knowing. And the reason was simple, but scary. Because Shu, although it seems like a pure and luminous frequency, is not selective. It amplifies whatever is already inside the person. It doesn't matter if it's light or shadow. Whatever is vibrating in your field is what will grow when that frequency is activated. And that's exactly why, in many traditions, its use was restricted to only the most prepared initiates. Imagine someone with deep fears, unresolved anger, or selfish intentions accessing such a powerful frequency. HU doesn't discriminate. It doesn't judge. It simply expands. And when it expands, it brings to the surface everything that was hidden in the deepest layers of the psyche. Those who aren't ready to face themselves with honesty can be swept away by emotional and mental waves they don't know how to handle. The ancients called this opening inner portals, not external portals like in fantasy stories, but portals within consciousness itself. And crossing those portals unprepared, many people couldn't handle what they saw on the other side. Forgotten traumas, hidden desires, ancestral fears. Everything would come up all at once, and without guidance, this could lead to emotional collapses, states of deep confusion, or even destructive behaviors. That's exactly why in certain periods of history, HU was hidden from the public, not out of selfishness, but out of protection, because not everyone was ready to deal with what this sound could awaken. Some spiritual orders realized that releasing this practice without emotional and mental preparation was putting people at risk, not physical risk, but vibrational. And maybe that's the greatest risk of all, because when the internal field is fragmented, the external reality inevitably reflects that fragmentation. HU is like a sonic mirror. It doesn't create anything that isn't already inside you, but it amplifies everything it finds. If it finds peace, it amplifies peace. If it finds chaos, it amplifies chaos. That's why those who chanted Hu without preparation often said they were invaded by strange forces. But the truth is, those forces were already there, asleep, waiting for a vibrational field strong enough to rise up. The Hermetic and Sufi masters knew this, and that's why, besides teaching HU, they prepared their disciples with emotional, mental, and energetic purification practices. The sound was the last step, not the first, because only when the field was clean could the frequency act as a channel of luminous manifestation and not a catalyst for hidden shadows. And that's why Thoth left one last teaching that almost no one knows. And this final teaching, hidden between the lines of the oldest texts, was the simplest and at the same time the hardest to understand. Because Thoth knew that HU was not a sound to be learned, it was not a technique to be memorized. HU is what you already are from the beginning, the primordial vibration that silently pulses within your being, even when your thoughts are chaotic, even when your emotions are confused, even when the outer world feels like uncontrollable noise. Throughout the journey, people try to find that sound outside, in books, in teachers, in temples, in rituals. But the true awakening happens the moment you quiet all of that and realize that the frequency you were looking for was always vibrating inside your field, waiting to be recognized. HU is not a magic word you repeat to create something. It's the very state of consciousness you manifest when you stop resisting what already is. Thoth used to say that as long as you seek outside, you'll remain separated from your essence. Because the vibration of HU cannot be taught, only remembered. It doesn't come from outside in. It emerges from inside out when your mind finally quiets and allows your field to return to its natural state. And in that moment, everything that once seemed far becomes present. There's no more searching because there's no more absence. HU is the sound of being in balance. It's the state of presence where nothing is missing. That's why those who awaken this frequency within themselves stop looking for meaning outside of life. They began to live as someone who has already found it, even without having all the answers, because their vibrational field was already filled with the only thing that truly matters: connection with who they've always been. When you realize this, everything changes, because HU no longer needs to be chanted for you to be in it. You live in the frequency of HU, even in silence. Every step, every breath, every glance carries that vibration. And life around you responds, not because you ask, but because you've become what you vibrate. This is true spontaneous manifestation, when your existence is the very vibration that creates reality. There's no more effort, no more separation, there's only presence. And now that you know this, there's only one thing left. Live in the frequency of who you truly are. And if you've made it this far, it's because something in your field has already started vibrating differently. So write in the comments now, "I heard the call of Thoth." That will be our vibrational signal to know that you're on this journey with us. And if at any point you feel in your heart that you want to help this channel spread more content like this, there's a special access in the first pinned comment for those who want to contribute directly. That helps keep this message alive and vibrating in the world. And before you go, pay attention. I've picked out a special video for us to continue this experience together. It's showing up on the screen now. Click sit and meet me there, because the next step will take this transformation even deeper.